Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at a great little episode of play between Leela 0 and Stockfish at the TCEC Division P. So this game just caught my attention because it was just totally bananas, really. So just thought I'd like to share that with you. What is the position? Well, bizarrely enough, a bit confusing. Material is equal. The pawns seem all spread over the place, but material is actually equal. The most striking part of the position really is the open H file. So there is an open H file. Leela as white has already got the rook on there, and well, there's clearly potential for more major pieces to get there somehow. The other interesting feature is that we've got a bishop along the c3 h8 diagonal, which is well, assisting the rook. So yeah, you know, I mean, already you can sense some sort of theme, some sort of danger. The other thing as well is that this knight on f4 is very nicely placed, just hitting the pawn on g6 and generally in the area of the king. And well, this queen on g5 from black, it's a mixed blessing really. I mean, it's kind of uncomfortably, you know, sort of helping to shore up the king side. It is threatening to take on g3, but if you take on g3, I go rook g2, and then g6 is hanging behind it. So yeah, not completely clear. The one thing that you can say about black's pieces though is that they're pretty nice and centrally placed, and well, black's big counterplay, basically big hopes, are pinned on the advance d5 to d4. Yeah, when you take, the knight comes into d4, and then, well, you know, these rooks are definitely going to be posing some problems. So you can basically tell that an explosion is about to happen. And, well, there's all sorts of ways of trying to do this. What Leela went for was king g2. And that's an incredibly useful move. It's, again, making space, making use of the space to the right of the white king. It's a theme that I looked at in Silicon Road, freeing h1 for the rook. And what it's also doing, it's getting out of, well, the worst effects of d4, because after d4 takes, bishop d4 is no longer going to be check, and knight d4 takes f3 is also no longer going to be check. So that just gives white just a little bit more time to do some stuff. So d4 was played by Stoff, takes, knight takes, and now rook h1. And yeah, this shows immediately the value of having played king g2. If you go knight f3, then I've got rook h8 check. Bishop takes, rook takes is checkmate, and if you go king g7, then rook h7 is checkmate. So that explains black's next move, which otherwise might seem a little bit mysterious, a little bit slow. It's bishop e5, and that's actually freeing a space for the black king to escape via f6. So if I play rook h8 and rook h7, you just escape to f6. So what are you looking to do now? Well, the point is knight takes f3 is now a threat because the king's got this escape. So you should really seem to need to do something either about this bishop or this queen. Dragon was looking at going bishop takes c7, and then after queen e7, bishop takes a6, which looked pretty damn scary to me, I have to say. Very scary to open up the diagonal like this. Was sort of leading to draws. Wasn't really didn't really feel like a great attempt for white. But queen e3 is what Leela played. So well, it feels a bit like out of the frying pan into the fire really, because you're getting out of the d file, and you're but you're running into the e file. But well, there's less dangerous stuff that the black can do on the along the e file. So yeah, quite sensible to get the queen out there, and obviously if you take with a knight, I can take with the queen like that. Black just played bishop g7, and then Leela played the move queen f2. Actually, yeah, I mean, Stockfish in my games was playing the queen to d3, so we've gone queen d2, e3 to d3, and the idea of it all is that if you go bishop e5, I'm going to take on b7, and if you go queen e7 again, as we did in the previous line, then I've got this move queen takes a6. Queen a6 defends the bishop, keeps it on the long diagonal, and we're also threatening knight g6 here. So that would, yeah, feels like incredibly stretched, really, doesn't it? But that would actually be, quite decent. But what the engines were doing here was playing, well, I think a move that I'd find very hard to guess. Queen f6, rook h7, and then queen e5. And again, you're giving your king an escape square via f6, and well, moving the queen to e5, you're getting everything nice and solid. And now actually you've got the idea of playing g5 to chase that knight away, and then g4 to attack the bishop on f3. It's totally bananas. The best line that Stockfish came up with was to go rook takes g7, queen takes g7, rook d1, and now there's this idea knight c6, takes, and king g7, rook d7, king f8, knight d3, g5, rook b7, knight a5, and the engines thought that black should be able to draw this. It's not comfortable, I have to say, but we are threatening stuff like g4, like rook e3, like bishop c4. So yeah, I mean, the engines just agree a draw here, so they seem to think that it's fine. I mean, still not easy to assess for black, certainly, and I wouldn't also say that it would be necessarily trivial to draw, but yeah, there seems to be enough counterplay there. So I mean, queen d3 was interesting, but Leela went for queen f2, and the idea of it is that if you do something similar to what Stockfish did, well, we take off and we go rook d1, and then there's no queen on d3, so this pin is really, really horrible. You can't go knight c6 because I just take on g7. The engines were thought that this was going to be the best. Takes, queen takes f3, rook d2, king h3, but yeah, it's a little bit awkward. King g7, I've got queen c3 check, picking up the rook. I go g5, threatening g4. I go queen c3 here. I mean, black, yeah, the engines find some some ways to resist a little bit more, but it's definitely unpleasant for black. So that's the idea of keeping the queen out of the way. That any pins along here are going to be really very dangerous. But Stoofvlees played bishop e5, and well, vaguely looking for ideas like bishop takes f4, exploiting this pin. So something's got to be done about this. Actually, queen e3, bishop g7 was the course of some games, but Leela doesn't want a repetition. Leela took on b7, and this is obviously getting really risky. The bishop moving away from the proximity of the king, just so that the queen can defend f4. But obviously, yeah, bishop over there, it feels very loose. Obviously, if you do something like c6, this bishop could come in behind. So very, very risky. And the amazing thing is, after queen e7, Leela just played the move bishop f3. I was actually quite interested with bishop c6 in actual fact, with the idea of going rook h8 check, wondering whether this might work. Actually, the engines just want to play the move g5, takes, and well, obviously you can imagine this is quite dangerous. The knight's on prise, and the queen, and eventually the bishop as well, will come to the long diagonal, and well, I mean, there's all sorts of weak squares here around the king there, so very, very scary. But Leela just went bishop f3, and yeah, it's one of those weird engine moments where White's just taken a pawn and then moved back. In a way, you said, yeah, but that pawn on b7, what was that worth? And you've just lost 2 tempi. But of course, the point was the bishop moved away so that the queen would be protecting the knight. And now the black queen has moved away from g5, so bishop f4 is no longer a threat. So the bishop can move back to f3. But on the other hand, it's black's move, so and black makes use of it to play the move g5, chasing away the knight. And well, obviously it was sharp already, but it's getting even worse, because I mean we're going to threaten g4, and then we've got all sorts of ways, if the bishop moves off the diagonal, of bringing a piece onto the long diagonal. So this is really, really crucial. But Leela didn't retreat the knight. Leela played rook h7. And, well, this is a very nice idea. The point is, if takes, I just take there. And, well, I've got additional queen g3 checks in the mix. So you definitely don't want to do that. But Stouf didn't do that. Stouf played g4, very consistent actually, just looking at whatever cost to get the bishop away from the a8 h1 diagonal so that we can start giving some checks and stuff. Well, Leela played the move bishop e2, very brave move there. Sorry, bishop e2, and possibly aiming for stuff like bishop c4. For the moment, queen b7. We can probably just retreat with something like king g1, and you know, we're not losing yet. So, but it's looks like a very risky move because, of course, we've got everything lined up here. And well, Stouf didn't wait. Stouf played bishop takes f4 here, getting rid of the knight and opening up the attack of the queen on the bishop on e2. To be honest, I'm quite amazed this isn't mating. That black isn't getting mated here, because, you know, I mean, really, this is really very scary indeed. I mean, we've got rooks along here, we've got this, we've got the queen could come in. I mean, really. But the first problem is that if bishop d4, we've got queen e4 check. That's rather annoying. And if king g1, we go queen d4. Rook h8 check, king g7, takes and takes, and well, obviously there's no problem for black. Everything's protected. Rook e8, bishop e8, and then we'll get our pawn back, and you know, it should be sort of okay. So what white does, however, is go rook h8 check, king g7. But now you'll notice there's something very important. We're going to take on d4 with check, and then you go king g6, and amazingly enough, by playing bishop f4, this bishop on f4, you know, it's just like a totally temporary piece, but it's actually covering h6, which stops white from giving a check with the rook, which is very useful, because if the bishop wasn't covering h6, then rook h6 would be imminent mate. And yeah, I mean, the key question is really, I mean, what can white do in this position? Well, Leela played the move bishop takes g4. The bishop was attacked. You get it out of danger. Also, by taking on g4, you're removing black's cover of f3, so a check can be answered by bishop f3 now. And of course, the key point is that if f takes g4, I've got this move queen c2 check, which is really unpleasant, because after queen e4, I can just simply take, and go rook takes d8, and this rook is loose. And white's just exchange up, and this pawn is hanging. If you go bishop c7, I go rook d7, rook e2, bishop f2, and somehow by miracle, all the checks are covered, and white's doing completely fine. White's just winning. So yeah, I mean, so many pieces are hanging here, so many things. But here Stouf played rook takes h8, and yeah, just starting to get rid of white pieces somehow. Bishop takes h8 played, so Leela trying to keep the rook there, and keep the black king in danger. So bishop d5 check played, and now bishop f3, making use of the fact that you remove that pawn on g4. And still looks unbelievably dangerous, this. But yeah, somehow you don't quite have any checks at the moment. Obviously this bishop on h8 is not a super piece. So black plays bishop e3, hitting the queen. And well, this is quite awkward actually, because if you go queen e2, I can take, and I can throw in a rook d2 check. Which is obviously going to be rather unpleasant. King h3, I've got queen h7 check. So, well, I mean, the engine said that king f1, rook f2 check, takes, queen c5 check is a draw. Obviously, the bishop can find a safe place on c3, and you know, then you're more or less it's basically a fortress. But still, that's not completely comfortable. But Leela wasn't finished. There's more tactics. Rook e1, quite amazing, hitting the bishop and leaving this bishop unprise. But yeah, the queen is pinned behind it. Bishop f2, rook e7, bishop c5, a retreating move hitting the rook on e7. The tactics are amazing. They really are non-stop. Rook g7 check, king h6, which is quite hilarious. Just the rook's attacking the bishop, but yeah, the bishop's defending the rook, the king's attacking the rook. But we've got bishop d5 in this position, and obviously you can only take one of the bishops. If you take that, we can move our rook away and then get this one safe. But actually what Stoofvlees preferred was to go rook h8, and now we're into opposite coloured bishops. Now, I mean, we've seen, you know, many situations where opposite coloured bishops haven't been enough. But actually, although black's piece is a little bit funny, they are actually pretty active. I mean, the king's coming out here. The rook's got loads of different possibilities, and these are on dark squares, and it's very unlikely that white can win the a-pawn and not lose its own a-pawn. So yeah, basically this is going to end up in a draw, and that's basically what happened. And I mean, you know, this Leela's really good at these opposite coloured bishop endings with rooks on. So I think only Stockfish is better in really tactical ones, you know, but yeah, Neural Net's AlphaZero2 was very strong in these sort of endgames. So if it's not winning, it's there's a reason for it. Rook d5, rook e6, and here the engines, the draw was adjudicated, I think. That's where my game ends. I wonder whether I've got all the game in there, but it's all happening because actually in one of my Stockfish Dragon games, we just got rook e6 and then rook e5. That's just the idea, forcing the exchange. b4, bishop c3, takes, and then after bishop b5, bishop a5. Of course, you know, white could just play and keep a pawn, but one extra pawn is not going to be enough, and when the king goes over to attack, to try and force through the b pawn, the g pawn and the dark square is going to be attacked as well, so just going to be a draw there. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that game. Yeah, I mean, I look at a lot of draws in these engine games just because, yeah, I mean, I love games that are balanced, really. You know, a lot of the wins, some of the wins are really impressive. I'm going to have a look at a gorgeous couple of Stockfish wins very soon as well. But you know, a lot of the draws, you know, really tight. That's really where I find the most thrilling sort of fights take place. So yeah, I always do like looking at the draws, especially in the TCEC at these long time controls. But I hope you enjoyed that. But if you liked it, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new books, Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, and also Reengineering the Chess Classics, which is the very latest one, which, well, if you enjoy this analysis, I think you'll love this. Full of engines finding great stuff and lots of my human explanations, you know, to hopefully make it all clear and understandable in words. You know, so, but anyway, you know, thanks very much for watching, and keep your eyes peeled for lots more videos, classic ones, TCC ones, and CCC ones as well. Thanks for watching.